Today on the Topic Show, Planet Fitness victim gives an interview, Vivek on the southern border attack, EPA new rules forcing more EVs upon us, Apple served with an antitrust lawsuit, Intel gets $8.5 billion to the US government for a new foundry, Keurig Dr Pepper debuts an organic pod, and Nestle recalls Starbucks cups because of possible laceration risk. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. I gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me. You see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you could click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, you have Intel getting $8.5 billion thanks to the CHIPS Act, which, at least it's a appropriately named bill or act from the government. You know exactly what it's all about. Chips. Well, not the kind that comes from PepsiCo for your lay, more accurately, computer chips. Now, it looks like this is a federal grant to Intel, and the goal is to boost U.S. semiconductor industry in the U.S., and it looks like it's going to be placed in Phoenix, Arizona, which, again, ironically, if it wasn't for people electing politicians to pass laws to make the U.S. so anti-competitive from a business perspective, you would never need these types of acts because the jobs would not have left. So they say that it's going to employ they already employ 13,000 people in the Phoenix area, and they think they'll forecast maybe 3,000 more jobs. And they say it's going to be great to have American made, which, again, our government kind of destroyed decades ago through the myriad of laws, rules, and regulations. And now you need these types of incentives to actually get businesses to construct things here. So it'll be interesting to see what's the long-term geopolitical implications, as, again, prior to the whole pandemic, an overwhelming majority of the global semiconductor production was we're talking 90+% of advanced semiconductors were pretty much all in Taiwan. So it'll be interesting to see as we continue to diversify that. Perhaps this will help make things a little bit easier from a production perspective, and maybe cut down on some of the issues with global trade and then some of the issues with global supply chains being cut. But yeah, a pretty penny, $8.5 billion for this new site, or new facility rather. It'll be interesting to see how quickly you can make a profit on it. But let me know. I believe they made about $20 billion in profit last year. Let me see here. It looks like it's $11 billion in loans. The first grant actually went to BAE Systems for making new chipsets for the fighter pilots in New Hampshire. So let me know, do you think this is a good idea, a bad idea, or do you think we should just have a lot more deregulation so we actually don't need these types of incentives because there'd be more jobs here already, more production here already? As always, it'd be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Other interesting business news, you have Keurig Dr Pepper debuting K rounds made of organic containers, no plastic apparently. Now Keurig perhaps was best well known, well now legally known as Keurig Dr Pepper, which is also Dr Pepper Snapple Group, which they purchased. Unfortunately, it's no longer a Texas-based company. Keurig is now headquartered, Keurig Dr Pepper globally is headquartered out of the Northeast area. And Keurig's rise to fame, I think everyone knows them realistically because of those little pods that you make coffee. They cost, way too much for me to buy them, but it's very convenient. You have your little plastic pod, you have the coffees already pre-packaged. All you do is take that piece of plastic with a little coffee in it, slam it into the machine, and the machine makes coffee, which saves you about 18 to 19 seconds of actually grinding coffee beans into good old coffee dust and then pouring that into the coffee receptacle. Truth be told, that's the best ROI you're going to get is just good old drip coffee. But that's just me. I know some folks love the fancy coffees and spending copious amounts of money on coffee in the machines. Nevertheless, that's what really, in my opinion, put Keurig on the map. They made so much money off that brilliant idea. I mean, quite literally, hundreds of millions of dollars, if not $1 billion idea. They were able to, I think that's one of the reasons Green Mountain, their parent company, they were able to actually buy Dr. Pepper. But one of the issues is, ironically, apparently the man who invented the proprietary patented idea of having a little disposable little coffee pod, ironically, he actually hated how bad it was for the environment because, again, not really easy to recycle because the byproduct, when you stop using it, spoiler alert if you have never used this before, the machine basically cuts two holes in it. So there's a top, they cut a hole in the little container, water goes through there, and then the bottom it drifts through. Well, the issue at the end of the day, then you have that plastic container, and then the coffee grounds inside. So it's pretty prohibitive to actually recycle. So a lot of people have said that's probably not great for the environment. And apparently, Keurig has now come out with a solution. So now, instead of having a plastic type of container, it looks to be, I don't want to say they ripped off the soil idea, but if you ever got a cheap little soil kit where like a little plant, a potted plant or something, you have like a disc that's about the size of a $50, which is probably aging me, but maybe a silver dollar is actually more accurate, but it's a compressed soil packet, and it's wrapped in some type of, it looked like a little fabric. This looks oddly similar to it. I'm not saying they just copy paste that idea, or this probably tastes as good as soil, but it looks like they actually say it's now an organic thing. So it looks like one of those little soil, not coins, but a little soil disc. Now, they say that the new pods are, quote, created from expertly roasted coffee beans that are ground, pressed, and wrapped in a proprietary protective plant-based coating. That, according to the Keurig Dr Pepper team, which, again, that's a pretty good idea. I'd be fascinated to see what's the actual long-term cost. If it actually is more efficient from a cost perspective, that would be an exceptional win-win. Because again, then there's less things. Not only, I mean, there's a lot of pros to this as well, not just environmental, but if you can make it a win on the dollar amount, maybe it's less. Because again, plastic, the cost of everything is going up these days. But I mean, when you're making plastic molds, the molds are tens of thousands of dollars. So there's a big upfront cost with a lot of those, and I'm not sure how many injections you can get from a single mold, but it looks like they said that K rounds, that's what they're going to call them, K rounds, which they're more like K disc. I don't want to say it's a terrible name, but I mean it's round, but it's also three-dimensional. It's kind of like a pog, which let me know in the comments if you even remember what those are. Now they say that the K rounds notably won't be used in the existing Keurig coffee machines. Instead, Keurig Dr Pepper has geared them towards a yet-to-be-released Ultra brewer, which, again, that's good for them because they're going to force you to buy a new machine. And I also know that with the coffee machine, the company aims to, quote, allow consumers to make a variety of hot and cold barista-style beverages without having to master complex brewing techniques, unquote. Which, as people are trying to pinch pennies in this economy, that's a good idea. I know some people are spending a lot, relatively speaking. They're spending over $1,000 on a coffee machine at home because they're saving not tens of thousands, but they're spending 2 or 3 times that currently at places like Starbucks for fancy drinks with ingredients I can't even pronounce. But they spend a little bit, maybe $1,000 on a home unit, but over time, it's actually a good ROI. Because instead of going to Starbucks every day and spending $7, $20, $30 in coffees, well, you're doing it at home for a couple bucks. And after that upfront initial investment, it usually will pay for itself long term. Now, they also note that Keurig Dr Pepper said that K rounds and the Ultra machine arises from a, quote, multi-year innovation which incorporates significant intellectual property in beverage pod, appliance, and manufacturing design and processes, unquote. Which, good for the shareholders. That's exactly what you want to hear. I can't imagine how bad if they open source this, or if their competitors like Coca-Cola could just knock this off. That's not great news, because again, you want to be able to make sure you get a good ROI. I'm not sure how much they're spending on research and development, but it'll be interesting to see. Looks like their market cap's around $41.16 billion, to kind of give you a perspective of how large the parent organization is, or how big Keurig Dr Pepper is. Now, can't help but think, I wonder what the initial cost will be for the machine once the machine debuts. And I wonder what the licensing agreements are, if any, because they have this idea for this pod, but what if you have your own blend that you want to put in? Will they allow that? And then will they have third parties? It might actually be harder to, quote unquote, hack this machine or bypass it. With the current, K-cups or that you use in machines, there's actually someone, I forget the gentleman or the gal who filed the patent, but there's actually a little cute little cup. So instead of being a self-contained cup with the K-cup with the coffee already in there, it's the same size, but it's a strainer. You can actually put ground coffee dust into it. So you gotta get they would argue, get the best of both worlds, and you reuse that little reusable strainer cup. So that's a pretty interesting idea. In this case, I don't think that would be possible, because it doesn't sound like It really is just a self-contained packet of coffee. So unless you had your own coffee dust and a compression machine or some type of way to mimic the shape and then the wrap of it, I'm not sure you're going to be easily able to knock this off. So that's probably have a couple of revenue streams for the company. So let me know, is this something that would interest you? It sounds like it's going to be apparently better for the environment. It'd be interesting to see if it's, I'm not sure if it'd be any more convenient. If anything, depending on how durable the coating is, it might actually be more sensitive to breakage and shipping, humidity, depending on where you live. So as a wise man, Thomas Sewell once said, there's really no such thing as solutions, there's only trade-offs. So the real question is, would you accept the trade-off of this new technology, or would you just prefer the good old, $13 drip coffee machine like myself, or perhaps just stick with the current K-Cup infrastructure that you have? As always, it'd be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Now going over to the Culture Proud podcast, you have Planet Fitness victim gives an interview. Someone who looks like basically your nice grandma, she was the one who reported a biological man shaving in front of a girl in front of the women's restroom at Planet Fitness. And Planet Fitness subsequently decided to revoke her membership. So for speaking out, she got her membership revoked, which is almost impossible with fitness companies. I mean, traditionally, they make all their sales in January, and then they struggle throughout the rest of the year. To actually fire a customer, I mean, it's almost unheard of. It's a cliche as old as time. Even Friends made fun of it in the 90s, where it's so prohibitively hard to quit from the gym is a parody in and of itself. So to say that, I mean, they are certainly virtue signaling, or some might say they're sticking by their values by firing someone who brings up this concern. Well, not fires. This grandma was not a employee of Planet Fitness. They were just a member. Now, it looks like this was first reported thanks to Libs of TikTok during the interview. And as youth might say, it went pretty viral. It got 1.9 million views in the first 24 hours last week. And it also got 31,000 likes. Now, it's about 8 minutes and 40 seconds long. It's a little bit long. I'm just going to play the first half. And before the interview, Libs TikTok says, quote, "Exclusive. New details emerged in my conversation with Patricia Silva, the woman whose membership at Planet Fitness was revoked after she exposed a man shaving in the women's bathroom. While she is punished for standing up for women, Planet Fitness is continuing to allow men to enter women's spaces. Patricia is hoping to inspire others to speak out if they encounter a similar situation and to protect women's safety," unquote. And truth be told, her voice is infinitely better than mine, so without further ado, we'll go ahead and play that really quick here.
Welcome, everyone, to the Libs of TikTok experience. I have an incredible guest today. I am going to be talking to Patricia from Alaska, and you have probably by now seen the viral story of the woman who had her Planet Fitness membership revoked after she complained about a man shaving in the women's bathroom. So now, Planet Fitness stock is down about 7% over the last few days. They have mass cancellations. I'm hearing reports from insiders of massive internal panic as they try to deal with this PR nightmare that they created for themselves based on their own policies. So we're going to get to talk to Patricia and hear from her exactly what happened. So welcome, Patricia. Thank you so much for joining me today.
And thank you for inviting me. I'm really glad that you're helping to bring an awareness to these situations.
Yeah, when you posted that video on Facebook, I mean, what were you expecting? Did you think that it was going to become this whole massive national news story?
Oh, of course not. I was bringing an awareness to our community. Poco Fairbanks is fairly small. I lived here for 40 years intentionally. So when I did that video, it was a matter of me feeling like this can't happen in Fairbanks, Alaska, right?
I'm with you. I would be shocked. I don't want that to happen in my community. So I'm glad that you decided to use your voice and your platform and to share the story. If we could just go break down what happened. So you snapped a photo of the man in the bathroom, right? And then were you just at the gym? You were working out?
My daughter was doing therapy across the street, and I'm a member at Planet Fitness and the athletic club, and it's just simple, easy. I always want to go in there and do a little workout, and I walked in the restroom. He and I caught eye contact. He had full face of shaving cream, and I got his attention, took a picture because I felt intimidated. As when I walked out of the bathroom, I noticed a girl sitting he was in the mirror to his left, wrapped in a towel. And she was a young girl. I don't know how young she was, but she was young. So I took a picture of him and I thought, well, I'll talk to the authorities and see what my rights are. That he needs to be out of here. So I actually told him, I said, you are who you are and you need to not be in a woman's bathroom. So he said, you know what, I'm LGBT queer, I'm transitioning right now. And I said, doesn't matter. You're a man and you should not be in here. So would you please leave? And he tried to argue, so I walked out. So then it was Wednesday morning as I got a call from Planet Fitness. It was 8:55 a.m. And they said, Patricia, we have a situation, Miss Silva, you know what I'm talking about. This is Planet Fitness and we need to cancel your membership. You crossed our rules. And I said, I was not the offender. We were offended. Every woman in that bathroom, I'm sure, was offended. I can only assume that he goes in there to make a statement that he can be there. I don't think it's so much that he just wants to be a girl. For him to stand there, and he could be shaving at home or in the shower, but to do it, it was intimidating. And by the way, all he really has to do is walk up to that desk and say, I identify as a girl and I'm going in the women's bathroom. And they say, okay. They don't ask for passport, driver's license, anything that determines, legally that he's now transgender. They just let him go. And then what do we have? We have children being raped in the bathrooms. We have, women being intimidated in the locker rooms. It's just, it's atrocious.
Were you aware that Planet Fitness actually allow men in the women's bathroom as long as they say they identify as a woman?
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
But
I mean, I don't think anyone knew that. And granted, they did have a couple commercials. We reviewed those earlier this week. I mean, how many of you knew that prior to this controversy? I mean, I had no idea.
No, I didn't know that. And the truth is that shouldn't be acceptable just to identify. You need more than that. Because if you think about it, anybody that walks in there, these pedophiles, these perverts, that's how they prey on people.
They just want to be in a women's bathroom, forget about how they identify. I mean, he's clearly not a woman. I doubt he even identifies as a woman. And he goes in there and shaves in front of women and girls. I mean, it seems like it's just a fetish.
I felt that too. I mean, I really feel, so, I'm a life coach. And one of the studies I do know is that your intuition is never wrong. Never. And immediately, I felt nauseous when I walked in there. I felt intimidated.
Has Planet Fitness said anything else to do after they removed your membership? Because the story doesn't seem like it's going away.
So they're not making any changes. And when I called the police, they basically said, well, you really don't have rights. I mean, if he's identifying as a woman, then he has a right to be in there. And I said, all I'm asking you for is an investigation. Find out if that man has any legal documentation, not that I accept him being in there, even if he does. I mean, he's got a piece.
That is one of the most important things of culture. I mean, it shapes politics, shapes policies, and it shapes enforcement of laws. I mean, we've seen this time and time again where we have laws in the books that are never enforced, this being yet another instance of that. Culturally speaking, there are a lot of people who are completely fine with biological men going to women's bathrooms where children are, where women are, and the police are more worried about backlash from them than the other side. And I can't help but wonder, let's pull up their stock price again. It's probably not great. Let's see here. Because, I mean, last week it went down around, 3%? Still hovering around a little below 60. I mean, they're not doing great. And when you just Brave search and Google search, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. First 8 results. So the whole first page of the results for Google, which, let's be honest, people don't look past page 1, It's all negative press for Planet Fitness. It's all around the stock plunging because of the controversy and people starting to boycott the brand and the company because of their policy. So it's definitely not great news if you're a shareholder. You should probably be quite concerned. And again, I think they're going to stick to their guns. They're going to stick to this policy. Because if their funding, there's funding implications. Some shareholders want this policy. There are some consumers who do want that policy of having men and women's bathrooms. I think if I were to gamble, I'd say probably the odds are 50-50 on who agrees on this policy versus who disagrees with the policy. Now, granted, we could also argue which of those people are more likely to actually go to the gym and work out. Fair question. But yeah, I can't but think overall it's going to be net loss for the company. And again, it's one of the most cutthroat industries. Especially if this happened in January, they'd be in a lot more trouble. Because again, that's where a majority of the sales come in for pretty much every gym. It's a fascinating phenomenon because of New Year's resolutions. A lot of companies will thrive Q4 or the fourth fiscal quarter of the year, and yet Q1, relatively speaking, for most industries is relatively slower than usual. With the exception of the fitness industry, they just spike exponentially. But let's go in the comments and see what does everyone else have to say. You have Librecat Media TM saying, quote, "It'd be a shame if everyone were to tag Planet Fitness in this post and let them know it's not okay." And it's a picture of a overweight biological man in a bikini and a beard, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 women looking extremely uncomfortable in a locker room. That got 3.2 thousand likes. Paul Zuzupa says, quote, "There's really only one solution to the Planet Fitness situation: drive them out of business. No man or woman should go there if they actually respect women. The only people who now go to Planet Fitness are predators and misogynists," unquote, getting 1.6 thousand likes. Let's see here. Oh, there's a handsome profile. I might be a little biased, but the topping show says, quote, "Looking at their stock, I don't think shareholders are going to like this policy. They may be gaining some consumers due to the policy, but I suspect they will lose more," unquote. That brilliant observation by the topping show got not many likes. It only got 2 likes, but I'm a little biased. I want to give that guy a shout out. Now, in all seriousness, going down, you also have Mr. Bigglesworth memes saying, quote, "Repost to boycott Planet Fitness," and is a picture of, well, it's like the washroom sign of the man and the woman, but the woman has an extra appendage between the legs and is pushing out the traditional silhouette of the woman. They got 2.1 thousand likes. Let's see here. Brano says, quote, "I was hoping this interview would happen. Planet Fitness, are you paying attention?" And Planet Fitness has a logo and it says, "Wait, why are you canceling your memberships?" And below is the trad wife and the trad husband, also known as traditional, as youth might say. They say, quote, "You canceled personal safety, so we're canceling you," unquote, getting 1.3 thousand likes. Let me see. Rushkar Karba says, quote, "It's not just Planet Fitness, it's LA Fitness too." And it looks like this is a sign from an LA Fitness gym. And it says, "LA Fitness Signature Club. Transgender individuals may use the locker room associated with their gender, or with the gender with which they identify." Now, grammatically, that is correct. It's just a little awkward. Well, grammatically awkward just sounds weird to say. I got 751 likes. Now, granted, if you look at Los Angeles and LA Fitness, and I'm guessing the demographics and the locations and the culture for them, that might make a little bit more sense. It's Los Angeles. I know I know they have locations all over. Let's see here. A couple of people reposting, the instructions of how to cancel it. Let's see here. Scrolling down, see here. We got Sisio Afrenis saying, quote, "Patricia may not know Alaska has privacy rights in our Constitution, and the state Supreme Court has specifically mentioned women having sex-based privacy rights. Planet Fitness needs to be confronted legally," unquote, getting 809 likes. Let's see here. Max Pescori says, quote, "Bad situation, horrible PR. I'm shorting their stock," unquote, getting 168 likes, which that's anytime you do anything with stocks, it's definitely a gamble. Some might say it's an educated guess. And I don't give financial advice, obviously, but yeah. If enough people canceled, the stock will go down. Now, that being said, someone like Bill Gates, very similar to Bud Light, might just swoop in and buy, I think he bought $95 million of shares through one of his organizations. You also have the Wealth Turtle saying, quote, "Planet Fitness caters to pedos and groomers," unquote, getting 334 likes. Mr. 360 Blow says, quote, I got my membership revoked for asking about his sports bra on the treadmill. I get to see an empty parking lot each day as a result. We are winning, unquote, getting 211 likes. Let's see here. Glenda says, quote, I hope she inspires others to cancel their Planet Fitness membership, unquote, getting 279 likes. So as the youth might say, instead of ratio, they're vindicated. It seems like 100% of the responses are all positive and giving both Libs of TikTok and the gal accolades. And I'm not too surprised, Gavin. Again, there's going to be a little confirmation bias in people who follow Libs of TikTok already. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, at the end of the day, are they going to gain more sales? Or are they possibly going to alienate so many prospective clients and lose so many current clients that at the end of the day, it will be a net negative? If I were gambling man, I'd say that's probably going to be the result. But as I always say, sometimes time shall tell. Going over to the political part podcast, you have Vivek on the southern border being attacked by illegal immigrants and being overwhelmed, shoving soldiers down. Now, this was actually a repost as well as an additional comment from Vivek commenting on something from Colin Rugg. Colin said, quote, new riot breaks out at southern border as 100 migrants rush the border, knocking down the guards and rip through the razor wire. The incident happened in El Paso, Texas. And Vivek said, quote, if this isn't an invasion, I don't know what is, unquote. It's getting 1 million views as well as 39,000 likes. Let's see here. I'm not sure if there's much you can tell from the audio, but let's see here. Got about 5-6 U.S. soldiers standing and a big crowd in front of them. And they're just overwhelmed. And then there's a bigger, I guess spoiler alert, I guess some people might be surprised, it's actually a bigger fence. So they get stopped at the bigger fence. But there are a lot of military-aged men all there. And again, it's fascinating to see. I mean, for decades been told, oh yeah, the border's secure, we're fine, we'll fix it. It's fine, but we'll also fix it. It's like, well, okay. Now, I can't help but think most of the comments will be agreeing with Vivek. The first one comes from Paul Zazupa saying, quote, the border is secure, Vivek. Kamala Harris said so. She wouldn't lie. And let's see. This is a clip of Kamala Harris and her eloquence. Let's see what she says.
We have a secure border.
Actually, the funny thing is, she wasn't doing stand-up comedy. I thought she was for a second. She's actually doing a Meet the Press interview. Which, again, how many Americans really believe that the southern border is secure? I mean, 2% of Americans? 3%? I mean, does anyone truly believe the southern border is secure when you had, what was it, almost 10 million illegal aliens enter the U.S. in the past couple of years? It's more than the population of most states. Now, that got 135 likes. You have Dave Banner, nemesis of neocons, saying even people who believe in open borders have to admit the hypocrisy of this. And it's a video compilation, one of the American citizens going to the airport where they get body scanned and doing the pat-down strip search. Then it's juxtaposed with a picture of the U.S. border, or southern border, to the U.S. And it's just, you have security guards just standing there doing nothing and people just crossing the gates. And they're not checking their bags. The Border Patrol is actually giving the fist bumps and high fives to the people coming. That got 297 likes. It's also maybe a good throwback to remember when pretty much every citizen was almost forced to get the vaccine in the United States, and yet if you broke into the United States, you didn't have to get it. Interesting. You also have Ryan Walensky saying, quote, it is an invasion and Biden is providing aid and shelter. That is treason, lock him up. Getting 185 likes. Valentin Gomez says, quote, every American citizen needs to use their Second Amendment to protect your family and your property. And the invasion is here. Unquote, getting 377 likes. Let's see here. Red Wave Press simply says this will end America as we know it. Unquote, getting 70 likes. We found it. There's a contrarian statement. I had to scroll a little bit, but our favorite leftist, Luke Zaleski, chimed in. Now, granted, not really our favorite, just follow him because, again, more information the better, and life in an echo chamber can get a little bit boring. So Luke says, quote, what do you call it when MAGA violently beats police protecting congresspeople inside the Capitol building? They are barred from entering so they can get in, hunt down elected officials, and make them stop certification of a legit election and establish the transfer of power to the imports of the office on Earth, unquote. Well, you would call those people feds, not MAGAs, but partial joke aside, or am I? That did get 11 views, 0 likes for now. Maybe some people like it by the time this video is rendered, but yeah, usually Luke gets a couple more likes than that. You also have Brick Suit saying, quote, the invasion is absolute, unquote, getting 43 likes. Mo Smith says, quote, a violent one. It is a takeover by foreign invaders, period, unquote, getting 63 likes. Let's see here. Log Cabin says, quote, an invasion without the right to shoot. No, this is called our surrender, unquote, getting 20 likes. TheTrumpet.com says, quote, replacement theory is actually the Democrat strategy, unquote, getting 39 likes, which is fascinating. That me just saying that will get a little fun additional, a note by the YouTube, even though we've seen elected officials talk about replacement theory and how it's good. So, kind of the typical thing. 1, it's not happening. 2, okay, it's happening, but it just doesn't matter. 3, it's happening, and you have to embrace it. 4, it's happening, you have to celebrate it. So, you see, that's pretty much most political ideologies these days. So I guess, no one should be too surprised that this is happening. I guess the real question is, will people vote differently? Will people ask their elected officials to actually do something differently to stop it? Let's just say, when it comes to the government doing something to actually benefit, left and right, to the benefit of the U.S. citizenry, let's just say I'm not very optimistic. Other interesting political news, you have the EPA to increase auto emission standards and force more EV upon us. Rest in peace, the free market. Now, this was brought to us thanks to Rob Sachs at LinkedIn News, and they note that, quote, tougher rules from the Environmental Protection Agency will cut 7 billion tons of carbon emission from cars, SUVs, and light trucks for the model years between 2027 and 2032. The new standards will also give the auto industry more time to meet President Joe Biden's goal of having EVs account for 56% of new passenger vehicle sales by 2032. Yep. And they also consider, say, quote, while the new rules don't require automakers to sell more EVs by a specific date, manufacturers will likely produce more EVs to follow the new rule. Amendments of the new regulations comes amid slowing EV sales, unquote. It's such BS. It's not technically a ban. They're just saying, it's one of those things where they're not coming out and saying, hey, we're going to ban the V8. We're going to kill sports cars and having fun while driving. No, what they're saying is you have to meet these standards. Well, guess what? Can't hit those standards? Internal combustion engines. That's why more and more EVs are being thrust upon the American public. It's not just consumer demand. There's about 18 people who want them. Kidding. Maybe 23. But the reason you're seeing such big push for EVs from a manufacturer perspective is because they're being forced to by a de facto ban. Because again, they're saying, oh yeah, here's the new emission standards for your fleet. So your fleet average, the average of all the vehicles that you sell, has to be a certain amount of carbon, more or less, whatever. And yet, if it's all ICE engines, you won't hit those arbitrary BS numbers. So they're pushing more and more EVs, which ironically, depending on where you live and how you charge them and the methodology in which you charge them, actually do more damage to the environment. And also, most of them are still disposable for now because of the batteries. Batteries are $20,000 to $30,000. Whereas if my good old Honda Civic with the manual transmission should be the default by every vehicle in the ICE engine, well, if anything goes wrong with my engine, I can just get it replaced for maybe a couple $1,000 at the scrapyard. With an EV battery, it's what? 10, 20, 30, 40 grand for a battery. So the long-term life cycle, I would say good old Japanese engineering with internal combustion engine is still the best for now. Now, scroll down, we'll see some of the comments here, because again, LinkedIn is usually, I would say, politically speaking, more left-leaning in terms of the posts that you see and most of the comments. But as I said, again, this has become also a political issue as well. That's why it's in the politics part of the podcast. The government's intervening with the private sector, just intervening and telling the automotive manufacturers how to run their own business instead of having the free market and the consumers decide. I mean, how fewer people would have an EV if they didn't have a $7,500 tax incentive waiting in front of them? I mean, it is being pushed upon us in a myriad of ways. It's not just tax incentives, but it's also bullying the automotive manufacturers and actually penalizing them as well. I think Ford is facing a $1.3 billion fine due to emissions not being hit or having trucks, or I forget the fuel standard that they're hitting, but they're being fined and taxed extra because they're making ICE vehicles. Now, one of the first comments comes from William Poge saying, quote, "We don't have the power infrastructure to support this law by 2030. It will take over 10 years to construct a new nuclear power plant. I drove through a new large apartment complex where there are no EV chargers. Where are cities like New York City going to charge their cars and trucks? I was in France last year and people used street chargers as parking spots, plugged in but not charging. Also, our safety infrastructure guardrails and such are not designed for heavy EVs. I have not purchased a new car since 1984. I cannot afford a new EV. Both of our cars will make 200,000 miles, so good for another 20 years. For over 20 years, Toyota claims they'll produce a new EV with a 700-mile range in 3 to 4 years. So who knows where the technology will be in 6 years? But the U.S. will have to get the power infrastructure upgrade costing trillions of dollars. Very true. Because again, it's kind of like California. They're banning ICE cars by at least 2030 or 2035, and they've already banned things like gas-powered lawnmowers and generators too. So if you lose the power because the government decides to shut it down in California, you also can't power your own house because they banned the sale of new diesel generators and gas generators for your house. Fascinatingly enough, people still live there, believe it or not. And it's the 10th, and again, importance of politics, that ban matters in California because it's the 10th largest automotive economy on the planet, bigger than some countries. Going down to other comments, you have Joshua Miller saying, quote, "Yeah, because this has always worked out well for the government when they want to try to force markets to do something that the consumers do not want. People do not want EVs. That is proven. If they wanted to buy EVs, then they wouldn't have bought them. Car makers are losing millions to billions of dollars on EV sales. I for one, refuse to buy one. There's no upside to buying them and tons of downside. Nothing more than draconian laws being passed by supposed government that is supposed to be about freedom." Alice shrugged. Anyone? They already did the EV truck. It will be a complete failure for anyone that uses a truck as a truck. We can't do anything with it. You can't do anything with a normal truck. You can't do anything with it that a normal truck does better, unquote. Getting 15 likes, which, again, there are some benefits to EVs. There's less traditional maintenance on the vehicle. If you're leasing it, that actually could be a pretty good ROI because, again, the biggest detriment is the battery degradation and having to replace the battery someday. And I actually know some of my friends who are leasing an EV at a lower price point than pretty much anything out there. So, again, there is some upside, but like most things in life, it depends on the application, the situation. If you want to own a vehicle for 20 years, no, EVs are garbage. My family bought a 2001 Honda Accord, new, and it's got an internal combustion 4-cylinder engine. It still runs like a champ. That's the brilliance of traditional Japanese engineering. It just works. And the ICE engine is less complex. There's less things that can break. So I should clarify. There are different things that can break overall because of the software issues. There's less pieces in an EV, like components, but I'd actually argue it'd be more susceptible because there's so much software and code put into them and so much additional information capacity from that regard. Also, malicious actors could also hack into them and, cause your car to just crash. But I'm sure, malicious actors in the government would never do that. Oh, wait. Yeah, they would. Let's see here. Let's do one or two more comments. Because again, there's probably people that are going to give this statement accolades. They want to get rid of your choice to have an ICE engine. They want you to all buy EVs. Let's see here. There are a couple of people talking about getting hydrogen cars, which, again, hydrogen works, but it's the production of the hydrogen. Production, transportation, and all that is the bottleneck with hydrogen technology. We've had hydrogen vehicles for decades. I mean, Toyota has a racing Corolla, I believe this model, that they actually did a hybrid drivetrain. Or not hybrid, I'm sorry, a hydrogen drivetrain, and it works perfectly. The issue is, again, you have to manufacture the hydrogen and transport it economically. And right now, we don't have the technology. It's not there yet. Let's scroll down there a little bit more. A lot of people are saying how Toyota is being vindicated, since, again, Toyota was one of the companies that didn't go all in on EV, and they've been vindicated because the biggest growing segment of the auto industry that people are adopting is hybrid technologies. Now, granted, me, I would only get an ICE engine if I want a car to last forever and have fun and, smile every day and shift 3 pedals. But that's just me. Let me know in the comments, do you think, is the Supreme Court going to shoot this down? I mean, EPA seems to have more and more power. I don't see anywhere in the Constitution where it says the government, the EPA should even exist or do this. But let me know. As always, if you're fascinated here, what you have to say. Other interesting political news, Apple has been served with an antitrust lawsuit by the Department of Justice, which I didn't see this coming. Again, they've had a monopoly or what some would be a traditional monopoly for many years, But with the government relations and just how beloved they are with the consumers and given the political affiliation of most tech companies, I'm surprised we're actually starting to see a modicum of scrutiny to Apple. Now, this comes to us thanks to Jake Perez over at LinkedIn News. They noted that Apple plans to move a file to dismiss the Justice Department's antitrust lawsuit in the next 60 days. The company stated that the case would set a, quote, dangerous precedent. The DOJ suit has cost Apple $113 billion in market value as their stock just, not erased, but it took a dip. Again, they're one of I think were they the very first $1 trillion publicly traded company? They've hit some huge achievement milestones under the leadership of Tim Cook. They hit the $2 trillion mark, and then I think the $3 trillion mark. Again, not financial advice, but geez Louise, I wish hindsight's always 2020. I wish I invested them decades ago. But I partially digress. They also know that people are selling stock as investors grow weary of the mounting regulatory scrutiny of the tech giant faces on both sides of the Atlantic. In the U.S., the federal government has 16 state and district attorneys general alleged that Apple illegally maintains iPhone dominance by barring rivals from hardware and software features. Which, again, the cliche is build your own phone. Which, there's nothing stopping you except you would need a lot of money and a lot of resources. The only realistic competitor to the phone market right now, which is dominated by Apple and Android being an operating system famously owned by Google, and Android pretty much being the default for everything from Samsung to, well, I don't want to say that's it for Android phones, but that's an overwhelming majority of the market. Do I know anyone who has like a HTC? Maybe. But overwhelming, the default winners of the market are Apple iPhones and Samsung Galaxies. And I think they also call the other thing called the Note. They have a couple names, but it's a Samsung phone. Now, it looks like Apple is also under investigation in Europe regarding the compliance with the Bloc's Digital Markets Act. Finding for flaunting new legislation could be as high as, fines for flaunting the new legislation could be as high as 10% of the global annual revenue, and even 20% for repeat offenders. Again, Apple's got some good lawyers. I'm sure they're going to fight that tooth and nail. 10% of your global revenue. Now, granted, Apple could technically absorb that because they are one of the most profitable tech companies ever. They have well above 50% profit margins. Whereas a traditional company, if you're getting a fine for 10% of your revenue, you could be out of business. Because again, that would mean your profit would have to be much greater than 10% to absorb that huge cost. Now, they also know that Apple was fined $2 billion in Europe after Spotify complained that Apple failed to notify users of alternative ways to pay for music streaming. So again, there are a lot of benefits to the Apple ecosystem. You got your Apple Watch, your Apple phone, your Apple laptop, although no longer your Apple car, because after 10 years of research, development, and investing, they decided to pull the plug on that. And it's an EV, so the pun's moderately intended. And it'll be interesting to see, because again, I'm very impressed by the success of Apple, because again, they sell a premium product at a premium price, and they were able to absorb that much market share. I mean, PCs, in terms of personal computing, they're still well beyond Windows, with the exception of, I know, marketing companies, like on an anecdotal level, those businesses might have more than 50% of their office using Mac and Apple computer products, because they are great for graphic design, video editing, what have you. But in terms of the big market, when it comes to PCs, still Windows overwhelmingly dominates. So it'll be interesting to see how many of these cases do they fight back and they successfully win? And then if they lose, is it going to be a fine, or are they going to be forced to divest parts of the business? There's a lot of things going up against Apple these days, and can't help but wonder what's their stock looking like overall. Let's see here. Let's see, Apple stock. Let's see here. So it's currently trading for, again, by the time this video is rendered and uploaded, it might change, but currently trading for $172.65. Current market cap of $2.67 trillion. It looked like last week it dropped and recovered a little bit towards the end, around 1.75% drop. Now, in the past month, it's dropped 6.35%. 6 months, it's down 1%. Year to date, down -7%. Although, zoom out a little bit, over the past year is up 9.38%. Past 5 years, geez Louise, again, hindsight is always 2020 when it comes to investing and many things in life, actually. But in the past 5 years, the stock is up 261%. And of course, the most amusing thing is look at the whole lifetime of the stock. And granted, it's been split and what have you, I believe. But the lifetime of the stock is up 156,836 and 0.27%, which is quite a lot to say the least. It looks like As of 2023, they have 161,000 employees. Revenues in, the year revenue for 2023 is also $119.58 billion, which is quite a pretty penny. Well, I should clarify, a vintage penny, since modern pennies are 99.99% zinc and basically garbage just being copper plated. Perhaps a sad metaphor for U.S. currency and U.S. fiscal responsibility, lack thereof, with the mounting debt. So let me know in the comments, do you think at the end of the day, will Apple actually face any real backlash? Will they have to divest? Will they have to pay just a big fine? And then, are you a fan of Apple? Do you feel like they have monopoly? Because again, there are technically alternatives. You can go to Android, and that's about it. And we've also seen issues where Epic Gaming is suing Apple for not having their stuff in the being able to launch their own app on the platform, which again, Apple built from nothing. They took the huge risks. They paid a lot of money for developers to put up the system, and to maintain that is not cheap as well. Most likely it's being hosted on something like Amazon Web Services or AWS, where, again, cost is not negligible. So let me know in the comments. As always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the business blunder of the day, you have Nestle recalling Starbucks cups because they may accidentally burn and cause lacerations. Now, this comes to us, actually go right to consumerproductsafetykommission.org, and they note that specifically, Nestle USA is recalling metallic mugs sold with Starbucks branded gift sets due to a burn and laceration hazards. It looks like they were the ones that were sold in 2023. Now, it looks like the recall date is quite recent, as of March 21, 2024. Now, they noted that if microwaved or filled with extremely hot liquid, the mugs can overheat or break, posing burn and laceration hazards, unquote. Which, I don't know. It's almost as if there's no one that exists in some of these quality assurance departments when we examine some of these recalls. Because again, Starbucks is a coffee company, and this gift set even comes with, it literally comes with coffee beans and cocoa, which traditionally is consumed hot. So you have a coffee cup that can't get hot. I can't fathom how mentally vacuous that is. It's almost like having a car company where a car can't go forward, or a computer company that can't turn on or connect to the internet. I mean, that's key to the function these days, more often than not. So it looks like the recall is going to affect about 440,500 units. And again, the cups look very metallic, and it is in a gift box where it came with a red bag of Starbucks beans and a green bag of Starbucks cocoa powder dust, as well as a little green ribbon. So if you bought that for anyone during the Christmas season, definitely, hopefully you didn't consume it yet, and there's just a fair amount of dust that's accumulated over it. Yeah, definitely make sure you toss it out. Now, in terms of what they're suggesting for remediations, and it looks like where these are sold, they were sold at Target and Walmart, and even through Nexcom, which is the military resales outlet nationwide, between November 2023 and January 2024 for about $10, $13, and $20, depending on the gift sets. Manufactured in China, not too surprised there. Now, it looks like in terms of have people been injured, they know that there are 12 incidents of the mugs overheating or breaking, resulting in 10 injuries, including 9 severe burns and blisters on the fingers or hands and 1 cut finger. One incident did also require medical attention. Now, if you want to find out if you're specifically recalled, you can go to www.nestleusa.info/contact-us-landing and scroll down to leave a message and click on complaint and select recall. Wow, so they know no one's going to do this. Because how many steps is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's terrible. Now, some companies will actually pay a couple bucks to actually get a custom domain made just for a recall of a product. And they know just doing recalls in general doesn't cost. The take rate is pretty low. Not everyone who sees this even knows about it. Well, first of all, most people who bought it might not hear about it. But then, are they going to take the effort to actually return it? And this one, you have to do multiple steps to return it. So I can't help but think the take rate is going to be basically nothing. So it's not going to cost Nestle too much, except maybe brand reputation is going to go down a little bit because they didn't know that hot liquids go inside a coffee cup. Now, the silver lining, as I like to tell people, if you usually squint hard enough in life, you'll find a silver lining to the situation. Now, thankfully, no one has detrimentally passed away from this. Now, granted, there's been a couple minor injuries, but it doesn't sound like, one required medical attention, but they weren't. It doesn't sound like they were hospitalized overnight. It's not having a severe negative impact. Granted, it's still not good that they had some injuries, but silver lining, they weren't serious injuries. and hopefully people find out about this. But still, having a coffee cup that you can't put coffee in, I gotta say, Nestle and Starbucks got, of course, this is just a licensing agreement. Nestle pays them money just to slap on the, so they can use the Starbucks logo. But again, when you're renting out your logo like that or licensing out your logo like that, you need to be especially protective because, again, no one's going to really think of Nestle when they see this. They're going to see the Starbucks logo. On the package, I don't even see Nestle's logo on there at all. I mean, you see the Starbucks logo on the cups, on the coffee beans, and the cocoa beans or powder, whatever's in that bag. So especially bad on Starbucks for not, being more thorough with this to actually do some quality assurance to make sure the logo is being protected. But also for Nestle for not knowing that you can't put hot liquids in this particular mug and not testing it. I gotta say that is certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in. Again, trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month. So if you can click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, leave me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback. Let me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.